True OG Schaefer-Ellis fans may remember when I made a video called The Most Amazing Movie You've Never Heard Of, promoting the banger indie comedy Lake Michigan Monster. Ever since then, the movie's director and star, Ryland Tews, reached out to express his gratitude, even sending me some cool merch that I divvied out to all my friends who were in the video. And in addition, last year, he invited me to a screening of the next film he was involved in. Hundreds of Beavers. When I tell you I was more excited for this movie than most actual Hollywood blockbusters that came out in 2023, I'm not exaggerating. Just the title absolutely tantalized me. Like, shit man, how many beavers do you think are gonna be in this thing? 5? 6? I don't want to spoil anything, but rest assured, it's way more than that. Suffice to say, I went to the screening with my friends and we just loved it. I've been dying to talk about it for the past year, but I figured I'd wait until it became available to the masses on digital to do a dedicated review on it. That way you can check it out for yourself. It's available to rent and buy digitally on Amazon, YouTube, and Apple TV right now. If you don't want any spoilers about the experience and want to go in completely blind, there you go. This movie gets one of my highest recommendations, and I can almost guarantee it'll turn up on my Best of 2024 video at the end of the year. Go rent or buy Hundreds of Beavers right now. Anyway, if you need a little more convincing, let's continue the video. Oh yeah, and just as a disclaimer, this video isn't sponsored by Hundreds of Beavers either. Ryland invited me to the screening, and only afterwards did I bring up the idea to him that I wanted to make a video to spread the word about it. I'm not being paid to promote this movie. It's just so good, and I want as many eyes watching it as possible. Which is exactly how I felt about Lake Michigan Monster. Okay, back to the video for real. Hundreds of Beavers has been referred to by a number of people as a live-action Looney Tunes film, which is completely accurate. It follows an amateur fur trapper played by Ryland, who starts out just trying to survive in the wilderness by trapping animals. As you can imagine, he usually fails in hilarious, cartoonish ways. But over time, he starts to get better and better, making for some actually pretty cool character progression, which complements the hilarious gags super well. He even comes across a merchant and dedicates himself to winning the hand of his lovely daughter. But in the process of doing so, he gets tangled in some increasingly bizarre, surreal, and delightful nonsense, courtesy of the titular Hundreds of Beavers. There's just so much to like about this film, but one of my favorite things about it is how every single animal is either someone in a costume or a puppet. They all look distinct and add to the surrealist vibe the film is going for. Look at that fish puppet. I love this thing. In general, this movie retains a lot of the same low-budget charm as Lake Michigan Monster. And yet, you can tell that the scope of the visuals has been significantly upped. There are so many sequences that look genuinely impressive based on the budget they're working with. And the way the film frequently blends animation and live action to make the comedy hit harder is just incredible. The director, Mike Cheslick, deserves so many props for this. It's a movie that I can genuinely say never looks bad at any point. Every visual touch perfectly suits the tone that the film is going for. One of the best comedic attributes here is the use of running gags. I won't spoil too much about them here, but there's this one involving the merchant spitting into a can that genuinely might be one of the funniest running gags I've ever seen in anything. You keep expecting it to get old, but it never does. And that could be applied to basically every running gag here. I also love how some of them end up factoring into this guy's traps. Like he discovers a bird will show up and peck his face every time he does a wolf whistle. It starts out as another funny running gag, but then he actually starts using this knowledge to his advantage and integrating the bird into one of his traps. It's so novel. A lot of people love focusing on just how funny this movie is, which, yeah, I don't blame them at all. But I personally also love watching this guy progress into a master fur trapper by discovering things about the creatures and the environment and using them to his advantage. It's just so satisfying to watch his puzzle solving skills unfold as he goes along. And some of the contraptions he ends up building feel like the sort of thing players would build to solve a problem in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but this movie was made before that game. So it feels more akin to the crazy shit you could do in Breath of the Wild with just the pieces of the environment. Speaking of which, the merchant's shop in this feels straight out of a Zelda game, and the animals frequently have punctuation marks appear atop their heads when they want to emote, reminiscent of Animal Crossing. Basically, if you love video games, I think this movie will heavily appeal to you. It just feels like an open world game with a lot of environmental puzzles to solve, just in cinematic form and brimming with excellent visual comedy. Oh yeah, I don't think I mentioned mentioned this earlier, but this movie has almost no dialogue whatsoever. It's all told through the hilarious visuals, with a couple exceptions that work really well comedically. Specifically, the title drop in this movie is one of the most satisfying moments I've ever seen on screen in quite some time. And the final act of this movie is just batshit, in the best possible way. It's slowly built up to all across the film, and it does not disappoint. Nor does it let up in the funny department. There's just so much more I could say about this comedic marvel of a film. But I don't want to give too much away. I just want you to watch it. And hell, if I haven't convinced you, maybe the testimonies of the rest of the Shafe Gang will. Take it away, gamers.
I don't have as much to say as the last time I was in a video, partially because James basically covered everything, and frankly, the less you know going into this film, the better. I do not want to spoil any of the jokes in this film other than the ones I already had to show in the footage, but you know what I mean. You should see this movie blind. Like, literally everyone, including the crew, have said this is live-action Looney Tunes. The DNA of those classic era shorts is fully present here, building on jokes effortlessly as the runtime goes on, while still surprising you every minute with something new. And even aside from the laughs, it's also an extremely satisfying movie to watch as our main character grows into a more capable trapper. It's a giant Rube Goldberg machine of a movie, seeing all the pieces laid out, connect, and move along into one of the funniest things you've seen in years. I tell you more, but I really just think you should go into it fresh. Again, it's available on digital platforms right now as this video goes up. Hey, all you kids on the subreddit and Letterboxd who keep wondering how I find movies like this, the answer is really simple. I follow a bunch of Blu-ray labels. They announce a thing, it shows up my Twitter feed, done, easy. That's how I found Lake Michigan Monster. You don't even need to buy the movies. Just follow them and look the movies up on streaming later. And even to get you guys to stop watching the same 20 movies on loop over and over again, watch more movies. Like Hundreds of Beavers. Best movie of the year for the past 2 years, baby!
Hundreds of Beavers is one of the most fun films I've watched in a bit. Lake Michigan Monster is already in my top 10 films of all time for how it used its low budget and short runtime so efficiently to tell such a funny yet epic story, so I was excited to see more from this creative team, and they did not disappoint with this film. This Beaver movie is a wonderfully absurdist slapstick comedy with visuals both hilarious and impressive, especially for the more action-focused set pieces in the later half. It has some of the best escalation of plot I've seen from a modern movie, as we see our protagonist climb his way from rock bottom to becoming an overpowered beast. Okay, maybe not overpowered, but he certainly does get smarter as the film goes on. Please watch Hundreds of Beavers and Lake Michigan Monster if you haven't already. They are brilliant yet epic comedies you won't get from anywhere else. It also has guys in suits, and I love motion pictures with guys in suits. Okay, bye!
You know, it's been a really long time since I've seen a comedy this confident in everything it's trying to accomplish while being successful, at least. But man, the atmosphere this film creates through the slapstick, the physical comedy, the costuming, the editing, the score, it's consistently entertaining and innovative with the scenarios Gene Kayak gets in as the film goes along. Everything about the way it's presented allows you to get invested in a conceptually ludicrous premise that you think would only be possible to pull off in the medium of animation. Don't know if it's better than Lake Michigan Monster yet, I'd probably need to rewatch them both first, but it's still an easy recommendation from me. Hundreds of Beavers. I wonder if one of them is CJ from Animal Crossing.
So, just like me and everyone else in this video, loved the shit out of Lake Michigan Monster. And I'm pretty sure we were all stoked to know what they were going to do next. My expectations were blown out of the water to know that we got a complete silent film of just nothing more but cheesy slapstick comedy from beginning to end. And it was phenomenal. It just really shows how much this crew really got it in them to make something as charmed and lovely and funny and just passionate as this. And man, that climax with like the whole... And I cannot wait for you all to see it, and I cannot wait to convince my friends to see it, because now I convinced my friends to watch Lake Michigan Monster, and they loved it, and I plan to do the same with Hundreds of Beavers. Anyway, I have no way to end this segment. Hey, Nevermore, say something funny!
I like men.
Holy shit, I like this more than Lake Michigan Monster. Thank you.